Hi guys, it's Pete from Harry Solutions. One of the key questions we get asked when people inquire to us about CCTV is around the legalities of having it installed. So whether can I record audio of my employees or of my domestic property? Do I need planning permission to have it installed? And what happens if it overlooks my neighbour's property? What's the rules and regulations around that? Now I could try and fluff my way through this by using Google searches, but I've done one better than that. And today I'll be joined by Sian. Now Sian is a legal representative from Gunnercooke, who are a law firm based worldwide, but she's predominantly based from the Manchester branch. And today she joins me on a Teams call where we'll discuss some of the key questions that we get around the legalities of CCTV and what happens if you break them. So today I'm joined by Sian, who's a partner and legal lawyer at Gunnercooke, who are based in Manchester. Thanks for coming today, Sian.
That's okay, Pete. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as always. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do at Gunnercooke and what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, well, no 2 days are the same, but I'll start by introducing myself. So, as Pete says, my name's Sian Darlington. I am a criminal and regulatory solicitor. I've been doing this for, over 20 years now. And essentially, I advise people who are accused of doing something wrong or people that are affected by somebody else's wrongdoing. And then a lot of my time spent advising both individuals and businesses on how to prevent themselves from doing something wrong or falling foul of criminal law, because increasingly there are more and more areas of life that are regulated, and it's really important that people know what to do. So my day can be anything from going to a police station interview with somebody accused of committing a crime to reviewing the business's policies and procedures and giving training on how to avoid committing financial crime, and everything in between that, really. So
sounds like no 2 days are the same for you.
No.
Stories to tell, but we won't be able to share them, unfortunately. But
no, probably not on a recording.
No, definitely not. No. The purpose of today really was we, as installers of security systems and CCTV, will go out and survey a property or a business premises with a potential buyer, a potential client. And they'll come to us and say, can I legally do this? What are the rules on this? Now, I could try and fluff my way through this by Google searching stuff and trying to go back to them with the best of what I can do. But it's great that we could get an expert opinion on some of the key questions that we get when we go and see a customer. So if it's all right with you, we'll just run through some of those questions and see if we can come up with some answers.
Absolutely.
Great. So the first is, and a lot of people will be in the same mindset around this, is that if you buy a property or you buy a commercial unit, you kind of own that unit and you can almost do what you like to it. Do you need permission to install CCTV?
You don't need permission to install the CCTV itself. The rules for domestic and commercial premises are slightly different. I'll come on to that. Really, the issue with CCTV is one of data protection and the potential for you to catch images of other people or recordings of other people. And that's really where the law might impact upon you. But for the purposes of actually installing it, putting it up, no need for permission. Only exception is that if you live in a listed building, you own a listed building, you probably need listed building consent to put the CCTV up. But other than that, no. And if you are renting a property rather than it being your own property outright, you should get permission from the landlord.
Absolutely, yeah. Permission from the landlord if you're renting. But other than that, if you're not in a listed building, you can pretty much install CCTV. So you touched on it then, and it's capturing images of other people. But what about capturing? We try and install CCTV in such a way that it only looks onto the boundary of someone's land.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't always do that. If we install on a terrace row, for example, and you're looking at a front door, you will capture some of the path that's underneath it and some of the cars and even the road. So what rules and regulations on capturing other people's properties and also public property?
Yeah, well, like with installing, there's no rules that say you can't have your camera pointing onto spaces other than your own property boundary. So, and whether that be next door neighbours or the public space in front of the house. But technically, if you are catching images of other people, then you're falling within the Data Protection Act and the rules under that, which means that you have to comply with those. And really, those obligations are things like displaying a sign to say that you're recording, some things which you might not think about. But then if somebody comes and asks you if you've caught an image of somebody and they say, I want a copy of that, you are obliged to provide them with a copy of that. If somebody objects to you recording them, for example, you should do everything that you can to stop recording them. And there are other things about not keeping images for longer than necessary. So, your purpose of your recording is pretty much security, isn't it, to keep your house safe? So you need to find a way to either an auto delete or to regularly delete recordings. So, you're not hanging on to footage for a number of years. And one thing that is probably worth saying, and this is where I think people might get themselves into trouble, is don't post recordings in public. So don't post recordings on social media sites like Facebook, etc., because that's when you're really going to start falling foul of the data protection law.
So even if an event happens around your property and you're quite upset about it, you still shouldn't screenshot that recording and post it out onto the internet?
No, you shouldn't. I think there are always going to be concerned neighbours, who don't want to be recorded, etc. And then, as you've said, normally you would try to position cameras in such a way. So I would say to anybody, if you've got a neighbour that's concerned, have a chat with them, explain why you're putting it up, maybe show them what you can see. So that they can be reassured, because it may be, they see it going up, they think you can see everything that's going on in their house, and it may be actually what you're catching is very little. So always worth talking through and trying to reassure your neighbours.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings us nicely on to our next point, which is when we install CCTV, we'll often say to the people that are having it installed, just have a quick chat with your neighbours either side, just to let them know. It's not so much shock them when all of a sudden there's this blue van's outside and ladders are everywhere and they're wondering why cameras are being installed. If you have a quick chat with them, like you say, sometimes you could just come to a quick resolution. But unfortunately, in today's world, not everyone gets on with the neighbours. So if you don't get on with your neighbour, do they have a right to come into your home and view what you can see or have a look at it on the app? I mean, you mentioned before about them requesting if they have ever been captured before. But if the system's brand new, how will they know if it overlooks their property?
No, they don't have any rights. I mean, they have the absolute right to complain to you and come round and object, but ultimately they don't have the right to demand that you remove your CCTV footage or that it can't point in a certain way. If they object to them being captured on camera, they do have the right to do that under the Act, and that would entail, then I think you might have to think about, well, can I point the camera in a different direction? But otherwise, their rights really are limited to asking to view footage in which they appear, and asking you to delete footage that you filmed that's got them on. Ultimately, if they think you're not complying with the data protection rules, they can complain to the Information Commissioner's Office, which is the body that's responsible for overseeing the implementation of that Act. And they could write a letter to you and say you're not complying with it, you need to do X, Y, and Z. But if they can't come into your home and remove the property or demand to view it, etc. So, yeah, but again, and I know that people have issues with neighbours, but if you can reassure them as far as possible, that is going to be a much easier life for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick conversation with either neighbour. I mean, if you're on an end road, just a neighbour next to you, just to say this is what's happening, and don't be alarmed if a van turns up and cameras going up. Majority of the time, people have CCTV installed just to protect what's theirs. It's not about spying on other people. It's a security issue for themselves and just protecting what's theirs.
Absolutely, and it can be Sorry, that's my doorbell now. It can be quite advantageous if there might be a bit of barking. Apologies, it's always the wrong time, isn't it? It can be quite advantageous for people that don't have it, for you to have it, because it acts as a deterrent, doesn't it? And also, I know from where I live, where somebody did have a slight issue. Actually, there was footage captured on a neighbour's Ring doorbell that they were able to provide to the police, and which assisted them.
Yeah. We are the same. We've had neighbours before where we've installed it, and they've come and said almost they don't need it now because the house next door to them has had it fitted, so they're happy just to have their Ring doorbell, and then the house next door has a full system installed because it kind of covers who's about on that street, so it's all round. You touched on it before about the signage. Now, lots of different houses have different. Sometimes some have a sticker, some have an official sign. Is there really a legal boundary of what you should put on a house as a type of informational one?
In terms of signage, I think it's just making the point that there is CCTV in operation, and you'll have seen those signs around, particularly on commercial premises, just to inform people, and then you've complied with your obligations under the Act.
Yeah, great. And is there different rules for commercial and domestic properties? You did say something at the beginning that there is.
Yeah, the difference really lies in the extent to which you've got to comply with the data protection rules, because obviously a commercial premises is going to be capturing a lot more images than a domestic property potentially. Again, there's no requirement to get permission to install the CCTV, but what there is a requirement to do is register with the Information Commissioner's Office that the CCTV is being installed, and also to prepare a privacy impact assessment, which will also need to be filed. And naturally, with things like this, there's also a fee attached. What I will say is where I think the Information Commissioner would be reluctant to interfere with domestic property, the same reluctance isn't really there with commercial property. So if you are in breach of the rules as a commercial organisation, you're likely to face a hefty fine. So it is really worth ensuring that you're following the rules. And there's lots of information on the Information Commissioner Office's website about that.
Yeah, I'll pop a link at the bottom of the video so people can go to that ICO website and take a look at the form for themselves. Now, another question we get asked quite commonly, and it's more to do with the commercial side, is, well, cameras have advanced over the last few years and now come with different features and functions inside them, and one of those is microphones. So can an employer legally record their employees, or go on, sorry.
No, this is a really grey area actually about the recording employers and employees, and people recording conversations that they have, so vice versa as well. If an employer is recording an employee, that employee should have given their consent for that. So it should be an overt recording. And some employers may have written into policies that they record certain things, but as I say, the employee should really have given their consent to that. There are some places where recording is an absolute no-no, so bathrooms, things like that, where it will be an invasion of privacy. The question of covert recording, so recording without somebody's knowledge, would be a breach of data protection. And also, I don't think an employer would ever be able to use that, for example, in court proceedings. Something like, or in the employment tribunal, they would take a dim view of it. So if it's something that an employer is thinking of doing, I think they need to be very clear about the rationale for doing that, make it clear to employees, and make sure that employees consent to that.
Yeah, like you say, it's important that they know that they're being either recorded visually, but also the conversations which they have recorded. Because like you say, if a boss is listening in and that doesn't happy with what somebody's saying, they can't even use that in a disciplinary procedure, because it'll backfire on them. So it's best to get that out in the open and make everyone aware that they are being recorded and the audio is included with that, and just get their consent on that. Is that what you were saying on that?
Yeah.
Good.
It's the consent that's key.
What will happen if somebody doesn't abide? I mean, you touched on this before. There'll be a potential fine from the ICO. But what would happen if we don't abide by any of these rules? The ICO send a letter out to you. What's the procedure that it tends to go down?
In domestic premises, the ICO have powers to issue notices, so they can issue notices telling you not to do something, etc. And ultimately, they can fine you, and they've got quite extensive fining powers, so that can be quite hefty. I haven't really found any examples of that happening in the context of what we're talking about in a domestic context, but you can never say never. But ultimately, it's a financial penalty, and not a power to come into your house and demand things.
Yeah, great. Well, that looks like it's covered everything that we had in terms of our very commonly used questions. So thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
Find out a bit more about you and a bit more about Gunnercooke, but also answer the questions in which our customers seem to ask us so often without me having to troll through Google and find out these answers. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem, Pete. And if anything comes up, I'm always happy to have a chat and see if I can help.
Great. I'll drop a link to Gunnercooke's website and in the description of the video below. So if anyone wants to go and check them out, you're a worldwide company, aren't you? You literally have branches all over.
We're an international firm now. So it started in Manchester. That was the first office, and then we've got offices, another large office in London, but also Leeds and Birmingham, and then we're in Germany now and the United States. So very, very exciting. And Scotland as well. Not managed to make it to any of the offices outside the UK, but there's time.
Well, hopefully they'll do an office in Ibiza or something like that, and you'll get a bit of sun every so often.
Well, or Cayman Islands maybe, something like that.
Thank you again for your time.
No problem.
Thanks, care.
Pete.
So there we have it. I hope those questions were really useful to you in understanding the legalities behind CCTV. I want to take the opportunity to thank Sian. She took time out of a really, really busy schedule to be on that Teams call. If there is any questions within that you want more information about, or there's something that wasn't answered, you can contact me or the team by going to harrysolutions.co.uk or emailing us at hello@harrysolutions. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys.